What's up, guys? Rick here with your DFS preview for the US Open. That's right, it is major week. It is time for some carnage. We'll talk about that in a second, but before I do, I'm recording this during the Safeway Open. So I have not seen the resolution to the Safeway Open yet, but since salaries are out, since you have an opportunity to build lineups, I figured why not? Let's do the video right now. And what I also will do is I'm going to go live on Wednesday, the day before the US Open begins, at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will answer all your questions. We'll go through all the stats, do all of that last-minute lineup building stuff. I did it a couple of weeks ago, and it was a lot of fun. I thought it was very well received, so let's bring it back. So this is an early preview, but I will supplement it with the Wednesday live stream and everything else, all the content you normally see throughout the week. Oh, it's coming. It is going to be a huge content week on RickRunGood.com, on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel, all that good stuff. So buckle up, strap in. It's time to get going for the US Open. Now, final thing here. If you would like to win a 6-month subscription, that's right, I'm ramping up the giveaways for the US Open. I'll give out 2 6-month subscriptions to RickRunGood.com, which is my site. It's where all the tools you're going to see here in this video come from. There are 2 ways to enter. If you are on YouTube, just like this video, make sure you subscribe to the Rick Run Good YouTube channel and comment below with who's going to win the US Open. That's it. The other way, if you are listening to the audio podcast called 300 Yards to Unknown, leave a 5-star rating and review, say something nice about the show, and leave me your Twitter handle. Do both for entries into each drawing. It'll double your chances. I will link the podcast in the YouTube description and vice versa. I think that's it. Let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into the US Open this week at Winged Foot. Winged Foot Golf Club. You might know it from the 2006 US Open, where Phil Mickelson finished second in dramatic fashion to Jeff Ogilvy. Still has not won the US Open, the only major he needs to achieve the career Grand Slam. But let's talk about the actual course, because it's a US Open, and what that usually means is carnage. And the early reports out of New York are that carnage is likely. The winning score may be over par. And of course, we don't know. We're many days out. A lot of this stuff can change. It can change overnight depending on rain and conditions and if they cut the grass and all that stuff. But from what I understand, it's going to play very difficult, as we usually get in a US Open. I mean, Shinnecock Hills kind of got away from the competitors. I think they lost the course a little bit, but it's going to play tough. And over on the First Cut pod that I host for CBS Sports, we have Greg Ducharme on. He has been noting how difficult this course can be, how long it can be. It's going to be stretched out to 7,400 yards. It's a par 70. So this is an animal. And with most US Opens, you are going to need to find the fairway. Playing out of the rough at Winged Foot, like most US Open venues, is going to be incredibly challenging. So guys that hit it long, preferably guys that can find the fairway without giving up too much distance. There's some really tricky green complexes out there. I mean, you need to be a complete player to contend at this type of US Open. So we'll talk all about those guys in a second. I mentioned it's a par 70, 7,400 yards. It is a bentgrass POA hybrid. So according to the GCSAA, that's the Golf Course Superintendent Association of America, they are the top notch. They're the authority in this. They have it as 80% Poana, 20% bentgrass. Okay, so obviously over time, the Poana, it kind of takes over a little bit, but this is still technically a hybrid mix. And what I've done in the database this year and this week and on the tools, on the course key stats, I have specified a little bit better and labeled more appropriately the hybrid strains. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a second. But when you look at the grass specialists for this week, I've gone with that bent hybrid mix to show you the stats. So the way that this reads, after all that, the way that this reads is Martin Keimer, technically the best specialist on this hybrid surface. And the way that I determine that is I look at his strokes gained on this surface and compare it to other surfaces. And essentially he is 1.8 strokes per round better on this surface than other surfaces. Now that might be a smaller sample size because that's a pretty big number, but some of the guys that you see up here who have a lot more rounds, I mean, Kevin Streelman, someone that you might consider this week. Matthew Wolff is not a large sample size, but someone that not a great putter in general, putts better on this hybrid strain. Mark Leishman as well. Kevin Kisner, guys. Scotty Scheffler is on here as well. So if you're into the grasses, if you're into this hybrid, and of course, these can all be different. This hybrid mix in New York is different than it is in California, and it's kind of all over the place. But if you're into the grass specialist stuff, this is here for you. When we look at key stats, we usually look at it by course. But you have to remember, the U.S. Open, of course, rotates courses. So being at Winged Foot this week, what can we glean from this week and how it might be compared to previous U.S. Opens? Well, the USGA, I mean, they set all of this up, right? So they set it up at Winged Foot, they set it up at Pebble, they set it up at Shinnecock, Chambers Bay. Like they're setting it up and they're trying to essentially do the same things. Usually it's very penal if you miss the fairway. Usually the courses play very long. The greens are usually very firm and fast, almost too firm, almost too fast. The GC SAA has the stimp meter for this week at a 13. It's pretty fast. It's pretty lightning. I assume it's going to be firm as well. I mean, it's going to be a tough test. So what you can do is you can look at this course key stats, this regression model, and you can say, how does this compare to other years where the setup is always similar? It's usually the same time of year. Of course, it's not going to be the same time of year here. It's generally the same field. It's a very tough, deep field. So there are things that you can glean. And the important stats that came out of this week are very interesting. Strokes gained putting is the number one most common important stat. And in fact, only 2 other events on the PGA Tour schedule does strokes gained putting become more important than it does here at the US Open. And I think that makes sense because you usually get incredibly difficult greens. You usually get very complicated complexes, very undulating greens, and the best putters can usually figure that out quicker than bad putters. I think it makes sense. So that's interesting that was up here. Driving accuracy ranks 5th, meaning there are only 4 other events in which driving accuracy becomes more important, and driving distance is 13th. I think that's important because while driving distance is key because it's a very long course, you cannot play out of the rough. You cannot play out of the rough at a US Open. It is almost impossible. So hitting the greens is important. And then you start to see the cream rise to the top. So just like the first handful of very important stats, and we rarely see an event that has 5 stats that rank inside the top 10 on the PGA Tour when you compare it to the other 49 courses or 49 events that we see on the PGA Tour. And those are strokes gained putting we talked about, driving accuracy, and then we get strokes gained total, strokes gained tee to green, birdie or better. And the way that I translate that is essentially that the best players win US Opens. That's the short of it, right? I mean, the cream does rise to the top. It takes a special kind of player who can work it both ways, who can be mentally strong enough to grind through 4 really difficult days out there to deal with the pressure. I mean, the best guys do it. So I think that's what I glean from the strokes gained total, the tee to green, and the birdie or better aspect of the important key stats. So who is that for this week? Well, we'll start with putting, right? That was the most important stat. So I'll sort these by putters. And Matthew Fitzpatrick at $8,000. We're going to talk about Matthew Fitzpatrick. But to see him at the top of the list for strokes gained putting in a week where I think that's going to be very important, and I don't want to give it away, but he is a gamer on difficult golf courses. We're going to talk about Matthew Fitzpatrick in a second. Andrew Putnam is $6,200. Christian Bezadenhout is $6,500. Bryson DeChambeau, $9,900. We're, of course, going to talk about him. Kevin Na, Ian Poulter, Matt Kuchar round out the strokes gained putting guys. Let's look at the driving accuracy guys, and there might be some familiar names, maybe a little bit further down. Brendan Todd, the most accurate driver of the golf ball. He also plays well on difficult golf courses, even though he shouldn't. Quite frankly, like a lot of the harder golf courses tend to be longer. Brendan Todd's not very long, but because he hits so many fairways, he finds himself in contention a lot. Like, it's counterintuitive, but it makes sense if you think through it. He's 7,400. Tyler Duncan, 65. Ches Reavie, 69. Jim Herman, 62. And then Webb Simpson at 97 round out the top 5 of players in driving accuracy. And then we'll just sort it by strokes gained total. And this should more closely line up with the DraftKings salaries here, and it tends to. John Rahm is number 1, Bryson is number 2, Webb is number 3, Justin Thomas 4, Berger 5, and then Harris English. That's your probably one value play, $7,900 if you want to look at the strokes gain numbers. But I want to flip over to the cheat sheet because there is a lot to digest about a lot of golfers, and the cheat sheet allows me to go through that a little bit better. 6 golfers over $10,000 with Dustin Johnson leading the way at $11,500. And there is no doubt in my mind that he should be the best player in this field. He is the best player in this field. He should be the highest priced golfer. I think you get a little bit of a break on him because it's a major. You usually get the softer pricing on DraftKings. You could make a really good case he should be closer to $12,000. I mean, you look at his odds to win this golf tournament, and at last check, I think he was like, I don't know, was he 8-1? Was he shorter than that? Let me pull this up really quickly because he was really short, 6.5-1. 6.5-1, and he's only $500 more expensive than Jon Rahm, who is 11-1 to win this golf tournament. So if odds makers think he is twice as likely to win this golf tournament, or a little bit less than that, and he's only $500 more than Jon Rahm, you could make a really good case that he is underpriced. I don't think that's that unusual. And then you look at what his history is. Again, all different courses, but similar setups. The U.S. Open, he's been phenomenal, right? He won it in 2016. He has 5 top 8 finishes in the last 10 years. I mean, half the time. He's just been phenomenal. And I don't think I really have to sell you on Dustin Johnson. I'll try to sell you on Jon Rahm a little bit, $11,000. And we're going to go over to the strokes gained database here. And I want to look up Jon Rahm's season. And this is probably well known. But the big thing about Rahm is his 2 victories here in the restart have come at the 2 most difficult courses that we saw. You know, it came at Muirfield Village for the Memorial, where it was a bloodbath. Remember that? It was just absolute bloodbath. And then Olympia Fields for the BMW Championship, another bloodbath. I mean, it was just unbelievable how difficult those 2 courses were, and Jon Rahm comes out on top in both of them. I mean, it's incredibly impressive stuff. If he ends up winning Player of the Year, which I don't think he will, but if he ends up doing it, it's because his peers have decided that those 2 courses were such difficult tasks, and it was so impressive for him to win both of them that he needs to be the Player of the Year. His U.S. Open history, not nearly as good as Dustin Johnson's, not nearly as long. He's only played it 4 times. He missed the cut twice, but last year he did finish 3rd to Gary Woodland at Pebble. I don't think there's too much to dive into with Justin Thomas and Rory McIlroy. Thomas will go as far as his putter allows him to. That is simultaneously great and terrible because he has not been a very good putter essentially in the restart. So I can pull him up real quick. I mean, I don't think I have anything breaking to say about Justin Thomas, who has been phenomenal from tee to green. So good, in fact, that he was actually able to win the WGC FedEx St. Jude while losing strokes putting. It's a rare feat. And he's only gained strokes in 1 event since then, and it was less than 1 stroke over 4 rounds at the BMW Championship. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's just going to go as far as the putter allows him, which is both good and bad. Just know what you are getting yourself into. And then Rory McIlroy, you know, we talk a lot about the mental side of it, now that he's got the newborn at home, and he mentioned he wasn't able to focus a lot on golf leading up to the birth of his first child, and it makes sense. And he played okay. He played okay at the Tour Championship, right? His driver looked good again. His irons and his wedges still weren't very sharp. The putter was decent. I think Rory's fine. I don't think he can necessarily just flip the switch and start hitting his wedges and his irons better. That's the one thing that's holding him back. So for JT, it's one thing. For Rory, it's one thing. If you want to buy a bit low on those two guys, I think it's fair, because a lot of, and I think rightfully so, the ownership is going to converge on Xander Schauffele at 10,100. I mean, this guy's been absolutely phenomenal. I want to pull up two things here in the strokes gained database. So I want to start with his recent results. Here's Xander. So let's see. He has finished in the top 25 in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in 8 tournaments in a row, and he won the shadow leaderboard at the Tour Championship. So I'm showing it as a second place finish here in the database. That includes the starting strokes. It is actually, if everybody started at even par, Xander Schauffele would have won the Tour Championship by like 2 shots over Scotty Scheffler. So he's been great. And then I want to show you this. We're going to open up the Holy Grail for the first time. And I love this tool so much. I absolutely love it. I've made some upgrades to it over the past couple of days. And I've got some more columns in here. And I've loaded in the US Open field, and I want to sort this by just US Open history. So let me go up to tournament. I'll go to the US Open, and I think I've got the last 3 years at least loaded in here. And in this field, no one has gained more strokes per round than Xander Schauffele in the last 3 years. 3.17. You know how good that is per round? It's absolutely phenomenal. Brian Harman, second. Hideki Matsuyama and Tommy Fleetwood, they're third and fourth. Those are guys that I'm also very interested in. But there's really no reason not to play Xander, which is, I guess, why the ownership probably flies up there. He might be one of the most popular golfers on the slate, especially with the softer pricing. You can fit any 10K guy you want in here. So no surprise to see Xander being, treated this way, because he should be. Colin Morikawa, I think, is great. I think he's just fine. I think he is fairly priced. He's won what, twice in his last 6 or 7 starts. If you're talking about guys that can hit the fairway, hit their irons, handle big time situations, that all screams Colin Morikawa to me. I do not think he's underpriced. I do not think he's overpriced. Bryson DeChambeau is 9,900. An absolutely horrible stretch of golf for Bryson DeChambeau over the course of the FedEx Cup playoffs. Bryson is going to live and die with the driver, because he hits it far enough to chew up so much of winged foot and really try to take this par 70, 7,400 yards and really shrink it. But the problem is he's been spraying it all over the yard. I mean, he's been missing so many fairways. And as I've mentioned many times, you cannot play any US Open out of the rough. You cannot. So we're going to see how the game translates, but I have to say I'm a bit concerned. I love the upside. I hate the downside. He's 9,900. I'm going to have to only include him in lineups where, maybe I've got a handful of other safe guys. I just know what I'm getting myself into when it comes to Bryson DeChambeau, which is super, super volatile. Webb Simpson. So Webb, this should not be a good fit for him. A US Open should not be a good fit for Webb, right? Because we know he's not very long off the tee, which usually disqualifies you from a lot of situations, but he's been great, right? We know he won. We didn't win it. He won it in 2012. He's gone 16th and 10th in his last 2 years. He had a 14th place finish in 2011. I mean, he's just fine. When these guys walk off the tee box, Webb Simpson is probably the best player in the world, right? From fairway through green, Webb Simpson might be the best player in the world. And it really comes in handy, especially because if he's not going to hit it long, he has to be accurate. And that's exactly what he does. Very accurate off the tee. Further down, Daniel Berger, I love. He's had a little bit of success at U.S. Opens. He's just way better. I mean, he's just absolutely in his prime right now. Again, kind of one of these guys that I'll have some exposure to. I think he is fairly priced. I'm not sprinting to get him into my lineups, but I'm certainly not going to be avoiding him. Hideki is here, and I mentioned Hideki a little bit earlier. I showed you the Holy Grail thing where he is, in the last 3 years at U.S. Opens. Only Brian Harman, only Xander Schauffele have gained more strokes per round than Hideki has. That's a great sign. We know that Hideki is going to just live and die with the flat stick. But you have to think about this. Like, can Hideki win at a tough course? Well, he won at Muirfield Village, right? He's won the Memorial. So he certainly shouldn't be intimidated by a difficult golf course, and his U.S. Open history kind of illustrates that even better than I can. There will be, well, I'm not ready to get down there yet. We have to talk about Tiger. He's $8,600. The cons about Tiger. There's no real evidence since Genesis, which was in February, that his game is in a good enough shape to contend at a PGA Tour event, let alone a major championship. That's the bad news, which is really bad news. The good news is that if he is going to compete, I think it is going to be at an event that plays very difficult, like this will. It might be tough for Tiger, especially if he can't hit fairways. He's cooked just like everybody else is. But there is no better grinder in the history of the game than Tiger Woods. And I think that a 1 over par winning score is much better for him than a 20 under par winning score at this point in his career. So I have to tell you, I'm not very optimistic. I hope that I'm wrong. I would love to see Tiger win the U.S. Open. I'd be running around like a maniac on Sunday evening if that happens. But I have little evidence to think that's going to happen. Scottie Scheffler. Scottie Scheffler is $8,200. And, as I record this very early in the week, Scottie Scheffler might be the most popular golfer on the slate this week. I don't think it's wrong. I think if you're going to play him, understand why. But he goes 4th place at the PGA Championship, so Harding Park, 4th place at the Northern Trust, 20th at the BMW Championship, and then he finished 5th at the Tour Championship, but it was actually 2nd in raw scoring. So he finished only behind Xander Schauffele in the shadow leaderboard, the raw scoring version of this. So it's been an unbelievable run, even from the Memorial, right? I mean, he's gone 6 straight top 25s. And he's doing it in a way that is super projectable, where he's just gaining a ton of strokes on approach, gaining a ton of strokes off the tee. In fact, some of his even really good performances, he lost 2.6 strokes putting and finished 2nd to Xander Schauffele by 2 shots. If he finishes dead even in the week in putting at the Tour Championship, he wins that event. The shadow leaderboard, of course. But he's even getting great results, losing as many strokes as he is putting. It's a really good sign. It's very projectable. It's very sustainable. At $8,200, I imagine he is going to be incredibly popular. If you are looking for pivots, I love the guys beneath him. I love Hatton. I love Fitzpatrick. I think I even love Victor Hovland. And I even think Harris English, for what he is, at only $7,900 for how well he's played, I think that's kind of great too. I mean, I don't know where to start. I kind of talked, I definitely talked about Hatton last week. We covered it in, I want to say the live chat. Maybe it wasn't last week. I guess it was Tour Championship week, where he had all that regression at once. He's an absolute grinder. The more difficult golf course he gets on, the better. He won at API, very difficult course at Bay Hill. Just absolutely love it. Let me show you Matthew Fitzpatrick. This is what I was kind of teasing earlier in the show, and I didn't want to give it up so quickly because I don't love Matthew Fitzpatrick because he usually just gains a ton of strokes putting. It is not sustainable usually, but look at where he's found success. The Memorial, Muirfield Village, very difficult. The BMW Championship, Olympia Fields, very difficult. That's good signs. A 9th place finish at the Arnold Palmer. I just told you how difficult that was. That's a great sign. And I don't really like the way that he does it, but he seems to always find a way, which I think is commendable. Back-to-back 12th place finishes at US Opens. So this isn't too big of a stage for him. He's never missed a cut in 4 trips to a US Open. I don't like how he does it, but I respect it. And in a week where we got a strokes gained putting metric key stat that was off the charts, I mean, he's the best putter in this field. So I hate it. He's not usually a guy that I roster, but I think he's going to have to be investable this week for me. Further down the list, Kevin Kisner. So Kevin Kisner is basically he's like the key stat guy this week, right? Because the two most important key stats were strokes gained putting and driving accuracy. Well, Kevin Kisner does both of those things, and he's got a bunch of really good finishes recently, right? 3rd at the Wyndham Championship, 4th at the Northern Trust. Let's check his full U.S. Open history. I don't think it's very good, though. Let me see. It's not. I mean, he has 1 finish inside the top 45. It was a 12th place finish in 2015. He's missed 2 cuts. So it's not a great history, but the model says it should be a good fit for him, but I guess in practice it hasn't been. I'm still pretty high on Kevin Kisner, who comes in playing well at the moment. And then the bottom of the 7s, I don't really love this. I think all these guys are fine. I'm probably not going to be playing Jordan Spieth, certainly not going to be playing Sergio. I don't mind Brendan Todd at $7,400. He's another guy. Let's look up Brendan Todd. This one you really have to wrap yourself into a pretzel to figure out. But someone who is one of the shorter hitters on the PGA Tour, but one of the more accurate, where does he play well? Well, 22nd at Muirfield Village. That's great. 8th at Olympia Fields. That's great as well. 17th at Harding Park. I mean, he's got 3 top 25s at the 3 most difficult golf courses we've played in the restart because he puts his ball in the short grass. Then he can hit those long irons, and he's hitting 7-iron when other guys might be hitting 9-iron into greens, but he gets it done. He's another guy that kind of breaks the mold of how you're supposed to be able to contend and compete in these types of championships, and he just does it in a different way, but he does it so well in a different way. Like, this wouldn't work if he missed 5% more fairways, but he doesn't. So it just works because he's so good at finding the fairway, and then he's so good at hitting longer irons in than everybody else that he can kind of make up for that lack of distance. I think that Ches Reavie at $6,900 is going to catch a lot of steam throughout the week. I'm not. I like it, don't love it. I think I'm lukewarm on it. He has the U.S. Open history where he finished 3rd last year and then 16th in 2017. But, I mean, 2019 was Pebble. That's one of the shorter U.S. Opens we're ever going to get, right? I mean, that should fit right into Ches Reavie's hands because he doesn't hit it far. He hits it accurately. I guess Aaron Hills in 17, that was a monster. So I guess that's okay. I just, the Pebble one kind of sticks out to me. But I get it. He's kind of like a Brendan Todd Jr. He's going to hit a lot of fairways. He's not going to hit it very far, and he's going to have to rely on that fairway through green game to kind of make up for what he loses off the tee. So I get it. I'm not super thrilled, but I get it. I think the industry is going to be very warm on him, however, as the week continues on. Below that, Brian Harman at $6,400. He also found success at that Aaron Hills U.S. Open, 11th at the Northern Trust, 12th at the BMW Championship. He's playing well at the moment. Again, gonna have to do it a different way than the rest of these guys. And then you get into, there actually are some guys in here like, oh man, I mean, I don't know who are good. Like, there's some Euro guys in here that are coming over. Sam Horsfield, Thomas Peters is coming over. These are guys I want to do some more research on. I want to try to go pull their Euro Tour numbers, maybe add it to the cheat sheet, maybe figure out a better way to approach that. These are good guys we'll talk about on Wednesday's live stream after I gather some more information and see if there's some actionable stuff on them, because they might unlock some of the lineups that you want to create at the top. I want to make a quick custom model before I get out of here. So let me refresh this. All right, here we go. So what do we know about this week? Well, we saw strokes gained putting. And again, this goes against my intuition. It goes against my heart, but I'm going to go with what the model says. So we're going to go with strokes gained putting. So we'll do 20 8 there. We are going to do, what was next? Accuracy. So we'll do 30 there. Then it said, well, I don't want to double up. So let's do, instead of doing total, we'll do tee to green for 15. How much does that leave me with? 27. Then I want to do a little bit of distance. So I'll do 15 there. And then I've got 12 left. To par 70, maybe I should do 12 on the par 4s. And we'll do it like this. And we'll run this model. And my number one golfer in my model is John Rahm. He's $11,000. Webb Simpson is number 2. Daniel Berger, number 3. English, Horschel, Hatton. DJ, Abe Answer. Interesting. Sung J M. My Xander, Kevin Kisner, they're like 11th, 12th. I mean, this is definitely you heard me go through like my gut, right? I talked about, I think, every single one of these guys except Billy Horschel and Abraham Answer, maybe. Like, I think this very much aligns with my gut a bit. Yeah, I might want to make some swaps out. I'm probably higher on Brendan Todd than my model is. Probably lower on Abraham Answer than my model is. Probably a bit higher on Matthew Fitzpatrick. Definitely higher on Colin Morikawa. So I'll use this as a starting point, and then kind of work my way through making some swaps. You know, I'll probably have more Horschel than I originally anticipated because he does play so well in my model. So we'll see about this, but as early as it is in the week, this is a pretty good starting point for me. And then obviously all of this will evolve over the course of the next 5 or so days. Don't forget, go enter the draw, win 6 months to RickRunGood.com. Join me Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. There's a Millie Maker this week. Go win $1 million. There's a lot of top prizes in the 6 figures. Go win 6 figures. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of carnage. Enjoy the week. Tweet me at RickRunGood or leave a comment below. Best of luck, and I'll talk to you guys soon.